My name is Adam Taylor. I'm 38, husband of 14 years, father of 2, and, until recently, a man who believed he had a good marriage. Claire, my wife, works in healthcare administration. Bright woman, always put together. You know the type, knows everyone's birthday, never forgets an anniversary, always smiling in photos. And for most of our marriage, I believe that smile was for me. We have 2 kids. Sarah is 12, Jake just turned 10. They stayed at my mom's the night I drove to Baltimore. Claire was at a healthcare compliance seminar at a Marriott. I told her I had plans that night. I lied. I needed to know. For months I'd had this feeling in my gut, not a suspicion. A knowing. Subtle shifts. The extra effort she suddenly put into looking conference-ready. The silence after certain texts. The new cologne scent on her clothes that didn't belong to me. I told myself I was overthinking. But a man knows. We always do, even if we don't want to admit it. So that Friday, I got in my car and drove 2 hours without saying a word to her. No heads up, no flowers, no cute surprise. I wanted truth, even if it gutted me. I checked in at the front desk, introduced myself, said I was Claire's husband and needed a spare key. The clerk asked for ID. I handed it over. A minute later, I had access to room 214. The elevator ride up was long, even though it only stopped once. My hand trembled holding the keycard. I didn't know what I'd find. Maybe she'd be alone. Maybe not. I opened the door. Slowly. She was sitting at the desk, typing on her laptop. She turned around and gasped. Adam, I thought I'd surprise you, I said, forcing a smile. Maybe grab dinner? She lit up. Almost too fast. Walked over, kissed me like we were 20 again. Invited me to stay the night. Said she'd missed me. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined everything. That maybe I'd grown too suspicious, too cynical. She went into the bathroom to shower. I sat on the bed, tried to breathe. That's when I saw her toiletry bag on the dresser. I wasn't looking to snoop. I just wanted aspirin. Headache from the drive. Instead, I found a pack of condoms. We haven't used those since I got a vasectomy 5 years ago. I sat there, staring. My mind tried to offer explanations, but there weren't any. Claire gets migraines. She keeps track of her prescriptions like a hawk. These weren't leftover. They were new. A fresh pack, bought recently. For someone else. That's when the switch flipped. Not rage. Not sadness. Clarity. I took out a safety pin from the bottom of her bag. She always kept one in there, in case a button popped off. And then, I poked a hole in each condom. Right through the center. One by one. Silent. Surgical. I put them back exactly as they were. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was thinking, she doesn't get to walk away from this clean. Then I called my buddy Rob. Asked him to call me in an hour with an emergency at work. Burst pipe at the school, or something. Just enough to get me out of that hotel room without a scene. When Claire came out of the shower, I played my part. Told her I loved the idea of spending the night. We went down for dinner. She ordered a filet, barely touched it. Claimed she wasn't hungry. She was glowing. Smiling. Like a woman with a secret. I tested the waters. Are you happy? I asked. She didn't even hesitate. Of course. Why? I shrugged. Just wondering. She took a sip of wine. We have 2 amazing kids, a good life, a home. I couldn't ask for more. I almost laughed. At 7:02 p.m., Rob called. I excused myself, came back 10 minutes later, and told her I had to leave. Emergency at the school. She frowned, but didn't protest. She kissed me goodbye. A soft, meaningless peck. As we walked back to the elevator, a man stepped out of the hallway. Tall. Tan. Probably early 40s. He looked at Claire and said, Hey, I stopped by earlier, but you weren't in. He turned to me, stuck out his hand. Tom Bradley. Claire talks about you all the time. I shook his hand. His grip was too firm. His smile too confident. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. Back in the car, I drove in silence. The pieces were falling into place. Her conferences. Her late-night work calls. The extra grooming. The sudden change in intimacy. It was him. The doctor. I'd bet my life on it. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because now I had a new goal. I wasn't going to fight for her. I was going to prepare for war. The morning after I got back from Baltimore, I woke up early. House was quiet. The kids were still at my mom's, and Claire was still at the seminar. I just sat there in the kitchen, drinking coffee, staring at nothing. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't panicking. Something had shifted. I knew what I had to do, and yelling or arguing wasn't part of it. That wasn't going to get me anywhere. I needed proof. Real proof. Not guesses, not feelings. So I went to work that Monday like nothing happened. Said hi to the guys, smiled like usual. But I kept my phone close. I had a plan now. I logged into our cell phone account. Looked at her call logs. There it was, same number, over and over again. Mostly at night. Same time I'd be putting the kids to bed or out coaching soccer. I plugged the number into Google. Tom Bradley. Physical therapist. Mid-40s. Runs a private rehab clinic. And when I saw his picture, same guy I saw in the hotel hallway. No doubt. Next, I checked Claire's calendar. She links it with the family account, so I could see her schedule. At first, it looked fine. Work stuff, meetings, errands. But some blocks were labeled off-site outreach or field interviews. Always during the week. Always when Tom's clinic was open. Too many coincidences. That's when I realized I needed more. I needed something solid. Something I could hold in my hand. I remembered Tom's ex-wife. Her name's Janet. Still had his last name. I found her online, reached out. Told her I was Claire's husband, and that I had a feeling something was going on. She didn't sound surprised. She paused, then said quietly, "You're the second husband to call me this year." That told me everything I needed to know. We agreed to meet up. No drama. Just two people trying to understand what the hell happened. We sat down at a little coffee place off the highway. She brought a folder full of printed texts, pictures, copies of emails. I had my own stack, call logs, a timeline I was building. Together, we started piecing it all together. It had been going on for about 8 months. At first, it was lunch meetings, the kind of stuff you could brush off. But then came the overnights. Conferences, outreach trips, wellness retreats. Janet had even followed them once. Snapped a photo of them going into a hotel. Saw the registry, they checked in as Dr. Thomas B., and guessed. She never confronted him. She was waiting. Like me. Before we parted ways, she handed me a flash drive. "It's all on here," she said. "Do what you need to do." I drove home feeling, not good, exactly, but clear. I knew what I was up against. I had the proof. I didn't have to guess anymore. Claire got home late that night. Said the last seminar ran long. Gave me a kiss on the cheek. Smiled like nothing happened. She even said we should plan a little getaway, just the two of us. Some quality time. I stood there, just watching her. She had no idea I knew. She thought she was in control. Let her think that. It worked in my favor. She didn't know that I already had what I needed. And I wasn't planning a confrontation. I was planning my way out, calm, clean, and final. A few days later, Claire came back from the conference acting like nothing had happened. Same routine. Same smile. Same fake kiss on the cheek. It made my skin crawl. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. That Saturday, her company, Liberty Insurance, hosted a family picnic. She said we should all go. The kids were excited, so I agreed. But honestly, I had no interest in being there. I just had a feeling, like something else was about to come out. When we got there, Claire lit up, laughing with her coworkers, acting like the perfect wife and mom. She introduced me to a bunch of people, most of whom I didn't care to remember. But then I saw him. Tom. He was standing near the grill, laughing with a beer in his hand like he owned the place. He looked right at Claire, and she looked right back. That look between them, it was too familiar. Too natural. I knew right then. I was right. And she still thought she was getting away with it. I kept my distance. I didn't cause a scene. I just watched. Then a woman came up to me. She introduced herself as Janet Bradley, Tom's wife. That caught me off guard. She was stunning. Polished. The kind of woman who made people turn their heads when she walked by. We shook hands and made some small talk. She looked around, then said quietly, "Let's go somewhere we can actually talk." We found a bench by the lake, far enough that no one could hear us. She didn't waste time. "I've known about them for a while," she said. "I hired a private investigator." I nodded. "I found condoms in Claire's bag at the hotel. I've seen the call logs. I know what's going on." Janet sighed. "I filed for divorce 2 weeks ago. My lawyer's building a case. We've got recordings, photos, hotel check-ins, even a few voicemails." Then she asked if I wanted to use any of it for my own divorce. Said it could help both of us if we worked together. I told her yes. Absolutely. She also said she was planning to sue Liberty Insurance for negligence, because several employees knew about the affair and didn't say anything. Apparently, there were witnesses. People who saw them leave together, who knew what was happening, and said nothing. Janet was serious. She wasn't messing around, and I respected that. Before we left, she invited me over to her place the next morning to go over the files and recordings. Her house was about 15 minutes from mine. She said Tom was going golfing that day, so she'd have the house to herself. We walked back to the picnic like nothing had happened. No one noticed we were gone. Claire was still laughing with her coworkers like nothing in her world was wrong. I just stood there, smiling politely. But inside, I was done playing nice. The next morning, I told Claire I was going to take the kids to my mom's so she could get a break. She said thanks and went out shopping. I dropped the kids off, then drove to Janet's. She greeted me at the door, calm and collected, and led me into a cozy den. On the table was a monitor, already set up. She poured me a Pepsi, handed me a folder, and said, "Let me show you what I've got." For the next hour, we went through everything. Photos of them holding hands in parking lots. Video clips of them checking into hotels together. Call logs. Transcripts of conversations. One file even had audio, Claire laughing and talking about getting away with it. It wasn't just cheating. It was betrayal at every level. The lying, the sneaking around, the pretending like everything was fine at home. Janet sat across from me, watching my face the whole time. I didn't react much. I didn't need to. I'd already gone through the emotional part of this. Now I was just collecting ammunition. At one point, Janet asked me, "What are you going to do next?" I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I'm going to take everything from her. Slowly. Legally. Quietly." She nodded once, like she understood exactly what that meant. Before I left, she handed me a copy of everything. "This is yours now," she said. "Do what you need to do." I shook her hand, thanked her, and drove home. And the whole drive, one thought played in my head. She has no idea what's coming. I didn't confront Claire right away. Not after seeing all the evidence with Janet. I needed one more thing before I made my move, a lawyer. So that Monday morning, I called up a guy my friend Rob recommended. His name was Derek Walsh, tough, smart, and not afraid to get his hands dirty. He handled divorce, corporate litigation, and basically anything messy that required strategy over sympathy. We met after work in his office downtown. I handed him the flash drive Janet gave me and laid everything out. He didn't say much for the first 10 minutes, just clicked through files, flipped papers, nodded occasionally. Then he looked up at me and said, "You've got her. You've got her cold." That was all I needed to hear. We spent the next hour putting together a plan. Nothing loud. Nothing impulsive. Just quiet moves. Smart ones. The kind that don't get reversed in court. The first step was to freeze our joint savings account. Claire had been slowly pulling money from it. $1,500 here, $2,000 there. Just small enough to avoid raising alarms. But now, it was locked. Only accessible with both signatures. The next step was gathering all the financial records, pay stubs, retirement accounts, mortgage info, insurance. I had access to most of it, but Derek showed me how to pull the rest without tipping her off. He also filed the initial paperwork to separate assets temporarily, so Claire couldn't drain anything or hide money. All it needed now was a court date. Derek asked if I wanted to serve her right away. I said no. Not yet. I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her thinking she was in the clear. Because while she was planning secret nights with Tom, I was planning the end of her comfort zone. That weekend, I acted normal. We took the kids to a movie, got ice cream after. Claire smiled the whole time, held my hand when no one was looking. She was still pretending. And honestly, watching her do it, knowing what I knew, made me feel nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just distance. Like she wasn't even real to me anymore. Sunday night, I told her I had a work trip coming up. Said I'd be gone Thursday through Saturday. She didn't ask questions. Didn't even look up from her laptop. "Okay, have fun," she said. That was my green light. I wasn't going anywhere, but I knew she'd take the bait. Sure enough, Thursday morning I left for my trip, suitcase packed, coffee in hand, gave her a kiss on the forehead before walking out the door. 10 minutes later, I circled back around, parked 2 blocks away, and waited. At 11:13 a.m., she left the house. Nice dress. Fresh makeup. Hair curled. She wasn't going to work. I followed her to Tom's clinic. Watched her walk inside like she owned the place. Like she belonged there. I didn't follow her in. I didn't need to. I had all the proof I needed. This was just confirmation. That night, I stayed at Rob's place. We cracked open a couple beers, watched a game, and talked like nothing was happening. But in my head, I was already setting the next piece in motion. The next morning, While Claire was still asleep at Tom's, I drove to her office. Janet had told me some things about coworkers who knew, people who had covered for her. So I requested a meeting with HR. I sat down with the director and asked one question. Are you aware that your employee, Claire Taylor, is in a sexual relationship with a contracted medical provider your company works with directly? You should have seen the guy's face. Pale as a ghost. He said nothing, just jotted down notes. I handed him a sealed envelope with a copy of photos, dates, and statements. Then I thanked him and left. That same day, I forwarded the same package anonymously to Liberty Insurance's ethics hotline, with a note that said, ongoing personal relationship between staff and provider may be violating internal conduct policies. I wasn't just going after Claire's lies anymore. I was going after her world. Claire got back home Saturday night, acting like she'd spent the weekend catching up on errands and resting. I nodded, smiled, played along. She had no idea what I'd done while she was with him. Sunday was quiet. We took the kids out to breakfast, laughed, talked. She even leaned on my shoulder in the booth like nothing had changed. But Monday morning, that's when things started to shift. Around 10:30 a.m., I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, I played it back. It was Claire. She sounded off. Hey, can you call me when you get a second? Something happened at work. I really need to talk to you. I waited. Then at lunch, she called again. This time I picked up. Everything okay? I asked casually. I got pulled into HR, she said, voice shaky. Someone reported me. They had pictures. They said I'd been violating policy with Tom. I didn't say anything. Just waited. They're opening an investigation, she said, like she couldn't believe the words. I might be suspended. That's serious, I said flatly. Do they know how long it's been going on? She was silent. Then, you knew, didn't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She hung up. That night, when I came home, she was pacing the kitchen. The kids were in their rooms. She looked like a storm, eyes wide, jaw clenched, hands trembling just a little. You reported me, she said. I looked her in the eye. Calm. Steady. No. But I'm not surprised someone did. You had photos. You gave them to HR. I poured myself a glass of water. I had proof. Yeah. I wasn't the only one. She sat down hard, like her legs gave out. Covered her face with her hands. They're talking about termination, Adam, she said. Do you understand what that means for me? I leaned against the counter. Yeah, I said. It means you'll have plenty of time to think. She looked up, eyes red. Why are you doing this? That made me laugh, small, bitter, real. Claire, you were sleeping with your doctor in hotel rooms while telling me you loved me. And now you want to play victim. Her voice dropped. I made a mistake. No, I said, you made a choice. Repeatedly. She tried to reach out, but I stepped back. I already filed, I said. Divorce papers were submitted last week. You'll be served soon. That landed like a brick. She froze. What? It's done, I said simply. You made your bed. She stood up, panic creeping in. You can't take everything from me, Adam. You can't. I'm not taking anything, I cut in. I'm just making sure you don't keep what you never earned. She went quiet again. Then, quietly, almost whispering, did you tell the kids? Not yet. I'll do it when I move out. Her head snapped up. You're leaving. I nodded. I'll take the apartment near work. You can have the house. For now. But this, us? It's over. And you're going to sign whatever my attorney puts in front of you. Otherwise, we'll go public. And I'll bring witnesses. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. That was fine. Because I wasn't the man she lied to anymore. About a week had passed since I told Claire I'd filed for divorce, and life had gone quiet. She wasn't texting. Wasn't calling. Not even those little guilt-loaded messages she used to send that we need to talk, or can we fix this kind of stuff. Nothing. Just pure, heavy silence. Like she thought if she disappeared long enough, all of it would just go away on its own. I was fine with that. I didn't miss her voice. I didn't miss her fake smiles. If anything, it gave me space to think clearly and enjoy a little peace for the first time in months. But then, right in the middle of a regular workday, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I ignored it the first time. Then it rang again. I answered. It was her. Her voice didn't sound like the Claire I used to know, not confident, not charming, not in control. She sounded small and nervous, real nervous. She said she needed to meet. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. We met the next day at a quiet public park. Middle of the afternoon. Almost no one around. I got there a few minutes after she did. She was already sitting on a bench, hunched over, staring at the ground like she was bracing herself for a car crash. She didn't even look up right away. Just sat there clutching a half-empty water bottle like it was the last thing holding her together. Eventually, she told me she was pregnant. Now, that should have been a moment, right? For most guys, it might have been a gut punch. But for me, I just stood there, not feeling much of anything. I already knew the baby wasn't mine. She confirmed that pretty quick. She knew it too. The silence between us after that was long. Heavy. She waited for some big reaction, shock, anger, maybe a breakdown. But I wasn't giving her that. I reminded her about Baltimore, the hotel, her toiletry bag, and those condoms. Then I told her, plain and simple, that I'd poked holes in them. The second those words left my mouth, I saw her face drop like she just got hit with a brick. It was almost funny, honestly. All that scheming, all that sneaking around, and one little safety pin changed everything. She stared at me like she didn't understand what she was hearing, like I was making it up. But she knew. Deep down, she knew. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just looked completely, utterly lost. The woman who once thought she could juggle a husband, a lover, and a double life without anyone noticing, now couldn't even form a full sentence. And I stood there, calm as ever, watching her try to figure out which way was up. She asked me what she was supposed to do now. I didn't answer. Because honestly, that wasn't my problem anymore. She had a baby on the way, with a man who probably had no idea what kind of trap he just walked into. A man who, as far as I knew, didn't sign up for fatherhood, especially not like this. Especially not with someone like her. Claire was stuck. And I mean really stuck. She'd ruined her marriage, trashed her reputation at work, and now had a child coming with a man who might not want anything to do with her once the dust settled. And me? I was free. Standing there, I realized something. She had no backup plan. She never thought this would come back to her. She thought she'd cheat, lie, get a little thrill, and walk away like nothing ever happened. But now, the job was slipping. Her name was probably being passed around HR like a cautionary tale. Her boyfriend, if he even deserved that title, was about to get hit with a surprise that had nothing to do with romance. And she was carrying a baby she didn't plan for, with no husband to help, no income she could rely on, and no clue what to do next. It was sad in a way, but also kind of satisfying. She played the game, and she lost. And I got to walk away without raising my voice. No screaming matches. No thrown plates or shattered glasses. Just quiet moves and real consequences. She'd built this disaster herself. I just made sure the lights were on when the whole thing fell apart. As I turned to leave, I didn't say anything else. And she didn't call after me. Maybe she realized there was nothing left to say. Maybe she finally understood that this was what rock bottom feels like when you dig it with your own hands. I drove home with the window down, arm resting on the door, breeze in my face. It was a good day. No guilt, no weight on my chest. Just clean air and the kind of quiet satisfaction you only get when the truth does the work for you. Claire didn't call for a few days after that meeting in the park. Honestly, I didn't expect her to. She probably needed time to figure out how her perfect little story had unraveled so fast. But on Saturday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. Not from her, but from someone else. It was short. Call me. It's about Claire. The name underneath, Tom Bradley. Now that was interesting. I called. His voice was flat. Cold. No small talk. He said Claire had told him about the pregnancy. Said she told him the child was his. And he didn't believe her. Not for a second. According to Tom, he told her straight. He wanted nothing to do with the baby. That he wasn't looking for a family. That this wasn't what they agreed on. He said she flipped out. Screamed at him. Said she gave up everything for him. Her job, her marriage, her stability. He told her that was her decision, not his problem. Then he blocked her. That was it. Claire had officially hit the bottom. The man she threw her life away for walked out the second real life showed up. No more hotel rooms. No more secret smiles. Just a reality check. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. She did this to herself. Now she was alone, unemployed, pregnant, and abandoned, and the father of her child was pretending she didn't exist. It was hard to imagine a woman like Claire in that kind of position. She was always the one in control, always with the answers, always holding the power in every room she walked into. Not anymore. Now she was calling mutual friends, trying to clear the air, telling people it was just a phase, that she wasn't herself. I didn't say a word. Let her talk. The truth always catches up. And when it did, it hit her harder than I ever could. After everything that happened, the lies, the affair, the pregnancy, the job imploding, Tom bailing, I expected Claire to keep trying to claw her way back into my life. But she didn't. Not really. Oh, she tried in small ways. A few half-hearted texts. Some long voicemails where she sounded exhausted and confused, like someone still hoping life would magically reset itself if she just waited long enough. But I didn't respond. I had nothing left to give her. My focus was somewhere else now. I moved out of the apartment near work and into a place I actually liked. Not huge, not fancy, but quiet. Clean. Mine. I got new furniture. Tossed every reminder of our old house. No more framed pictures, no more hand towels she picked out, no more smell of her lotion on the pillows. I built something from scratch. Something real. Even started hitting the gym again. Nothing crazy. Just early mornings, headphones in, headphones out, back to the basics. It felt good. Better than good. I dropped 10 pounds in a month. My back stopped aching. My mind felt sharper. I was sleeping again, deep, dreamless sleep. The kind I hadn't had in years. I also started going out more. Grabbing a drink after work with a couple guys from the office. Saying yes when friends invited me places. It wasn't about dating. It wasn't about proving anything. It was just freedom. No lies. No tracking someone's story in my head. No pretending everything was okay when it wasn't. Just peace. Meanwhile, Claire was still living in the house. For now. My lawyer made sure it wouldn't last long. The mortgage was in my name. The car was leased through my job. And her employment at Liberty? Terminated. Officially. No severance. From what I heard, she was scrambling. Trying to find work somewhere else, but struggling to explain why she left her last job without notice. Add the pregnancy on top of that? She was in a position she had never known before. Broke. Alone. And scared. Funny thing is, Claire always looked down on women she called emotionally messy. Said she'd never be one of them. She used to talk like she was above all that. Like she was immune to chaos. Now she was the chaos. And I was the man who walked away clean. No revenge. No drama. No public breakdowns. Just a quiet exit, a clean plan, and a slow rebuild. The people around me noticed the difference. At work, I was sharper. At home, calmer. Even my mom said I looked lighter. And I was. Because the weight I used to carry? It was her. And now that she was gone, really gone, I could breathe again. She tried to call again one night. I saw her name flash on the screen. Didn't answer. 5 minutes later, a text came through. I don't expect anything. I just miss talking to you. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it. Because the truth is, I didn't miss talking to her. After every mess, there's a chance for something better. Pain doesn't last forever, not if you don't let it. I didn't know that right away, but I learned it over time. I met Julia on a normal day. No big moment. Just two people reaching for the same book in a quiet bookstore. We smiled. Talked a little. Ended up getting coffee after. She was simple. In a good way. Real. No games. No angles. Just herself. We started seeing each other slowly. No rush. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but with her, things just felt easy. Natural. I told her about Claire. About the cheating, the lies, the baby that wasn't mine. I didn't hide anything. Julia didn't pity me. She just listened. Then she said, "You're not broken. Just done with the wrong people." And she was right. We never tried to impress each other. She'd come over in sweats, hair tied back, no makeup. We'd sit, drink coffee, talk about simple stuff. I like that. No tension. No guessing what she was thinking. That kind of peace? I hadn't felt it in years. Claire gave birth a few months later. A girl. Tom wasn't there. I heard she was alone in the hospital. I didn't call. Didn't ask. It wasn't my world anymore. Mine had changed. Now, I wake up next to someone who's honest. Who looks me in the eye and means what she says. We don't talk about the past much. Don't need to. I've got a quiet home. A calm heart. And a future that feels like it finally belongs to me.